Hello and welcome back to another Saturday here at Coriander Quilts. As you can see, Tigsy has joined us today. He was meowing at the window and Nicole let him in and he just made himself right at home. I don't know how long he's going to stick around, but he's really such a buddy now. We have been, since we've moved into our house, Tigsy has gained some winter weight. I will say that to put it nicely. And Nicole was just talking about him because I said, oh, he's just, I mean, you can see how he is. He's just a big hunk of love. And she's like, oh, he's just a little bloated. Sometimes you have just a little extra weight you're carrying and it's probably just water weight. So maybe that's what's going on with our dear friend Tigsy. But he's such a lovable cat. I have been sending him out more often and making him stay outside. I'm like, you need to get outside and get some exercise, buddy. You stay inside and things happen. So, all right, so we'll see how long he joins us. I've got fun things today. We are going to do the patchwork bag pouch tutorial today. I've got a viewer quilt. I'm going to show you just a couple of some other bags that I made. Some of you wanted to see those. I've got Moda blockheads that Tigsy is thoroughly covering up with his rump. And yeah, we've got fun things planned, so stick around. First of all, let me chat about our new backdrop quilts. This bundle is going to be a little bit different for our backdrop bundle than it has been in previous weeks. This is a PDF only bundle. These are some quilts that I don't share as often because they're not available in the paper format pattern any longer, but they're still available as PDF. So we decided to put together a little fun, not seen too often here on the channel, PDF backdrop bundle. We're starting off with Apple Creek over here. This quilt was originally made using Lulu Lane fabrics. It's a fat eighth friendly quilt, which is fun. You don't as often see the fat eighth quilts, so fat eighths, and then you need some various yardage for stems and leaves and things like that. It finishes at 75 by 75. Sliding over, this is one of my more favorite patterns. This is called Line Dried and it is full of Ohio stars. Framed Ohio stars, big Ohio stars, small Ohio stars. Ohio stars all around, and I love it. There are so many quilt blocks in this quilt. I remember when I pieced it, I told my mom if I had known how many blocks there were before I started, I would have been a little bit hesitant to start piecing because it's a lot of blocks, a lot of piecing. I don't even remember what that number of blocks is, but it is a lot, but so worth it. It's a beautiful quilt. It's another fat eighth friendly quilt. And then you need some stripes for your borders here and there. It finishes at 62 by 74. This fabric line was Flour Mill. Again, these patterns are some of my older patterns, so the fabric lines that I used are going to be a little bit harder to find if you can find them at all, but they're going to be beautiful in lots of different lines. Now these last two are kind of especially fun to see because they're both made using Prairie, which was my very first fabric line, and I've just been kind of chatting about In the Garden, which is a follow-up to Prairie and has the same color palette. So these two patterns, when In the Garden comes out this fall, would be beautiful in the Garden, and it would be a perfect substitute for these Prairie fabrics. So this first quilt here is Florette. It can be made using either 1 layer cake plus 2 charm packs, or you can make it with 6 charm packs. So if you have a bunch of charm packs hanging around and you want to do something super scrappy, or if you have a layer cake plus a couple charm packs, you can go that route. It finishes at 66 by 87. And then this last little guy tucked over here on the end, this is Idyllic. The pattern for this one also includes a solid version. I made it in a beautiful butter yellow, a dark goldenrod yellow, not the light color, but this shade here that I like using so much. So the pattern includes both that solid version and then this scrappier version. And it's a larger quilt finishing at 82 by 98, so you could easily enlarge that to make a queen size quilt if you wanted to, just by adding borders. It's another fat eighth quilt, so you're getting a nice roundup of fat eighth quilts in this bundle if you have been low on that particular pre-cut for patterns. This includes quite a few. So fat eighths, you need 30 of them, and then some backing, background, binding, and you'll be all set. So that is the roundup of the new backdrop bundle. We'll leave this up for a little while. Again, these are PDF only patterns. The paper versions have been sold out for a number of years, but we wanted to offer these to you as a bundle, but in that PDF format. Moving on, we have a viewer quilt share. This one comes to me from Yvette M. She says, "Hi ladies, I want to share a quilt I recently made for a friend. I have loved your Springbrook fabric collection since it came out, but at that time was unable to purchase any. When I was looking for fabric that represented my friend and her beautiful culture, she is from Trinidad, I stumbled across someone who was thinning her stash and selling some charm squares and a layer cake of Springbrook. I bought it immediately. To me, the colors perfectly represent my friend's love of the sun, sand, and sea. And as a bonus, I got to work with your stunning fabric line. I have plenty of fabric left over to create something else. Cori, thank you for sharing your incredible talents with us. I look forward to watching each Saturday morning." Thank you so much for watching, Yvette. Thank you for your lovely comments, and thank you for sending those photos in to share of your quilt. I do agree that is a perfect sun, sand, and sea quilt. Now, for viewer questions, I'm going a little bit of a different route with the patchwork bag share. Last week I asked if any of you wanted to see some of the various patchwork bags that I've made, and a lot of you did. And so I was going to pull and share a bunch of different ones that I've made, but I have misplaced some of them in the process of moving. So I'm not even sure where all of them are. And I thought, well, let me just show you the one I specifically talked about last week, plus a couple more that I use a lot. So you're seeing some of my favorites today. This first one, let me zip you up. We'll see if Tigsy moves to let us use that overhead camera a little bit. But this first one is the Amy Butler Weekender bag. This was the one that I mentioned that I use for carry-ons. I use it a lot. It's such a nice big size. It's super cute. It's durable. I've flown with this I don't know how many times. It goes on trips with me all the time. It fits so nicely up in your overhead compartment if you're flying, and I just love it. So the pattern itself doesn't include any of the piecing that you see. I altered that, added that in. All right, oh, perfect. See, he's so thoughtful. He knew I wanted to show you this right here. So I added these sections in just based on the measurements that I needed. And I do this a lot with bag patterns. I customize it to make it just a little bit extra special. The fabrics I used here are from my Sundrops line of fabric. This is a linen from Moda. I don't know if it's still available or not. I haven't looked for it recently, so I'm not sure. I can look that up and see. Excuse me. And then it has the nice double zipper, which is really fun. And then it's just roomy inside. No interior pockets, just lining, and that's it. So that's what that looks like in there. This was probably one of the more labor-intensive bags I've made. It took quite a while. There's a lot of work in these, but super cute. So I love this one. It's just such a nice size. You can see, you can wing it over your shoulder, but it's not super big. It's just a great size. So the Amy Butler Weekender bag. And then I had to grab some of my sew together bags because I've made several of these. I believe there is now a YouTube tutorial video that walks you through making these. I could be wrong, but I think that's correct. And it's just such a nice little bag. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with these. And again, I add a little something special to my bags when I make them. I like customizing them. So this was made using Sunny Side Up. I used some of this panel from the fabric line and hand quilted it. Again, I'm using kind of mixed fabrics, so it's, oh, I said Sunny Side Up. The panel is Sunny Side Up. These prints here are Sugar Creek. The binding is Sugar Creek Wovens. The bottom is Sugar Creek Wovens. And then inside, it's Sugar Creek Prints and Wovens all mixed together. Colorful zippers. It's just such a nice bag. I often will use my, I grabbed this bag off the shelf and it was full of pearl cotton, so you can tell what I use it for. And a thimble. I keep hand quilting supplies, embroidery supplies in these little bags because they're just so perfect for storing different things. And often I will have my needles just right here in the lining so I can just pull those off and I'm ready to start stitching. So that is one of them, this next one, exact same bag pattern, just different fabrics. So this is just a mix of fabrics I had in my stash, I think before I started designing fabrics. A cute little, I made a cute little flower block that I added to this one. And there it is. So well-used bags. I love these. They're a little bit, they don't take super long to make, but you know, a little bit more than some bags, but so cute. So I wanted to share those with you so that you could see some of my favorites. I use those often. All right, let's move on to my Moda blockheads blocks. These are the two that I completed for this week. This is the pattern that was released. This pattern is available to download over on the Moda blog. I'll make sure and have that linked. And then this is my alternate block using the A Bloom panel and then borders to bring it to the 9.5 inch size. So another easy to piece patchwork block this week. And then of course, these are super easy to piece. So that project I am staying on top of and it's coming right along. Now, we're just going to go right into this patchwork pouch. I'm going to call it a pouch tutorial. Now, I got, it's kind of a tutorial, not a written out pattern, but a really nice put together picture tutorial with lots of words over on Joanna of Fig Tree's blog. And this is a pattern that doesn't necessarily have to be made in a certain size. And she gives you some great options for going about piecing the bag. And she's got, 2 different zipper options over there that she talks about. So I will link to her blog and I'm going to be utilizing the techniques that she used on that tutorial to make this bag today. So just wanted to share that. If you want to make one of your own, you'll have this video, you'll have that tutorial, so you should be all set. We're going to start with the little A Bloom embroidered panel motif that I finished up last week. And I need to trim this down to 6.5 inches. So I'm going to start with that. Before I do that, I will share the supplies that I've grabbed. So I have this, I'm going to be using this for the front of the pouch. I've got a nice chunk of batting. I save my batting pieces from Quilts when I get them sent back. I don't always ask to have the batting back because if I did, I would end up with so much batting scraps, but I do save it when I receive it back, and it works great for these little pouches because you have just these kind of random sizes and you know, you're not probably going to make a quilt with something like this, but placemats, pillows, pouches, it works great. So I pulled just a chunk of batting. I have a zipper. I think this is either 14 or 15. I'm not sure how zippers are measured, but when I lay it here, it is just over 15. You can't see that at all. When I lay it here, it is just over 15 inches long. I'm going to need about 12.5 inches. So this is perfect. We're going to trim this down and make that work. Move my mat back down now. I have some layouts. We can just talk about those right away. I was trying to decide what size I wanted this bag pattern to be, and I had originally thought I might do like a 14 inch. It's not going to end up being exactly 14 because of how we add the zipper in, but you know, roughly 14 inches. It works beautifully for using the mini charm squares, which I am going to use. This uses, I think I counted 40, so this would be perfect. But my zipper wasn't going to be quite long enough, so I scrapped this plan and I went with this plan, which is going to give me more of a 12-inch size pouch. So I'm going to offset the panel instead of centering it, and then all of these squares denote my mini charm squares. So that's what I am planning to do here. And then I pulled fabric. This is going to be binding for around my zipper. You'll see how we use that in a little bit. I'm using the bird fabric for my interior portion of my pouch. This is going to be my binding around the perimeter of the pouch, and this is my backing fabric. So I think, and then of course the mini charm. I think I have everything I need to make this pouch. And I think it should go together nicely. If you've not made a pouch before, this is going to be, I've made several using a similar technique and they go together nicely. They're nice because you can make them in pretty much whatever size you want. Your zipper limitations are probably going to be about the only thing you're going to really need to think about. But you know, sky's the limit, smaller, bigger, whatever you have zipper-wise on hand. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim this down to size. I'm going to go ahead and use this OmniGrid ruler that I've talked about recently. It's really nice for fussy cutting out these squares. You can see where you need to be so easily. And I'm cutting this at 6.5. So I want to center this up and then we're going to trim it. That's actually pretty nice right there. See, make sure everything lines up before I mark this. I think I'd be pretty happy with that. You slide it over to the left just a hair. There are frosted sections that I'm sure I can see better than you can see. So I'm just making sure that it all just lines up nicely around the perimeter here. I want to make sure I've got at least 1/4 inch around the entire thing, which I do. I have a little bit more than 1/4 inch, probably about, oh, I don't know, a little more than 1/4 inch. So we'll go ahead. I think that's good. Am I happy with that up there? Oh no, Tigsy's coming. I hear the patter. Oh, and he's back with his head bumps. He says, please, I'd like some pets. Let me get you marked. He's probably, oh yeah, the batting would be nice. Oh yeah, there you go. You just settle in there, buddy. Oh my goodness, and the purrs are out in full force. Now I am actually going to grab a 6.5 inch ruler. I have one handy here. I could have taken this and trimmed it up using the edge of this ruler. I could have grabbed a different ruler, but sometimes those little dots, when you mark them and then cut them just one side at a time, can get cut off, and then you don't have those to reference. So I'm going to use 6.5 here so that I can just go ahead and cut all the sides at once without repositioning my ruler. And that way I don't have to worry if I cut those little blue dots off. I just used my Dritz Mark Be Gone marker, which is a water-soluble marker. And I'm going to also be using that to mark my quilting lines when we get to that part of the bag. So there it is. Now this is trimmed and ready to go. All right, and so far he's behaving. Sometimes he gets a little frisky with my fabrics. I never really have trouble with him reaching for my rotary cutter or reaching for, you know, something that I really wouldn't want him to, which is nice. So maybe this will work out just fine. He does take up a substantial portion of my workspace, but that's okay. Now he might play with these little fabrics as we start working. Let me go ahead and grab, here's my layout so I can keep track of what we're doing. And what I had been thinking when I was planning out the order of fabrics, sometimes I like to just take my charm pack and use them in the order that they come off because it creates a really nice gradient of color across your whole project. So I'm going to try laying it out. Yeah, see, he's like, oh yes, that looks like fun to play with. Oh, Tigsy. So I'm going to try laying it out that way and see if I like the way that looks. We'll see if Tigsy lets me do this. Yeah, you lay over there. That would be good. Okay, so he's on my layout, but I think we can still see. Actually, I'm gonna, give me my layout, buddy. Okay, let's see if he stays there. All right, so now I can see what I'm doing here. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across, and then another row of 6. Yeah, you can see that up there. So let's just see what happens if we just do exactly what comes out. If there's duplicates, and I'm probably just going to skip that white on white, and then any duplicates I will also skip. His tail's going to just zhuzh these fabrics right away. I might skip that one too since I'm using that for my binding, and that one's not that exciting, so I might skip that one too. And I can always go back in and add them together if I want to. Add them back in if I want to, but we'll see what happens here. Okay, so these are our first 2 rows here, and then this little guy's gonna fit right in this section here. Oh, buddy, don't mess up my layout. Where's he gonna go? What's his plan? Can I keep going? We'll keep going and see what happens. I need 3 down the sides here. We'll see if it works out to do it this way. I don't think I want this green guy hanging in down here by himself, so I'll set that to the side. And we'll continue like this. So that gives me those 3, and then I just need 6 across the bottom. We'll see where we end up. Ah, I missed one, didn't I? I only did 5 across, so we're gonna adjust this here. I started counting at the bottom and I thought, well, that just doesn't seem right. There we go, like so. Okay, you guys are probably looking at that thinking, what is she doing now? So then I can put my green back in. There we go. And then we'll just continue on this way. Oh my goodness, here, listen. Here are his purrs. He's so purry. So funny. Okay, let's keep going here. He's the purriest kitty. That was one of the things when he showed up at our house. You'll remember he was a stray a few years back. His purrs are so good. He's got the loudest, best purrs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Well, I don't love those 2 down there, so let's just move you out. Actually, what I might do, maybe we even just take that out so that we can, what do we want in this corner? That? Do we like that? Maybe we do there. We end like that. We could also bring in some of the darker grays. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll get rid of that one. We'll get rid of that one. We'll bring, oh, I don't know if I like those 2. Let's switch those 2. And then bring in some of these darker grays. So let's do that. And let's finish off with, oh, the birdies. Yes, let's do that. Okay. I feel like I'm pretty happy with this. Of course, you could scramble these all up and really mix and match your colors and play with placement, but sometimes it's just really easy just to open that charm pack up, lay everything out, see how it falls, and then see if you like it or see if you want to make some adjustments. And I'm pretty happy with that. I like the way that looks. So now my next step is going to be to sew these rows together. And I'm going to sew this row together. I'll sew this row together. For these side chunks, I'll sew these together. It'll get sewn onto here. This section and this section get sewn together and then sewn onto here. And then this, I'll have already sewn that up. And then I sew everything together. So these will get sewn together first. This center portion gets sewn together, and then the bottom. So depending on exactly how you are laying everything out, maybe you're not using mini charms, maybe you're just using borders to frame out your square, your piecing is going to be a little bit different. You know, if you're just using borders, you'll just have your center, you'll add borders, and then you'll add your top and bottom borders. But it's pretty straightforward piecing. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything here sewn together, and then I will show you what that looks like. Before I completely sew this together, I wanted to show you the pressing on what I've done and just give you a better visual of how I was explaining I was going to piece this together. So I've sewn together the top rows. This is pressed to the left, and then this one here pressed to the right. This little chunk over here, I've just pressed everything down. And then these are pressed left, right, left, right. So because this row right here is pressed to the right, I press this one to the left, this one to the right, and then this one to the left. I had that one. No, yeah, there we go. I had it right. I just said it wrong. I want to make sure I keep those all in my right order. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so this is left, right, left, and then the bottom gets pressed to the right. That way it's going to match up with this pressing right here. My next step will be to sew these together and then to sew these 3 together. And then once I've got this chunk sewn, I can sew this in here. These 2 seams are both going to get pressed to the left. and that is going to allow it to nest with this section and this section. I'll show you the pressing again from the back once I have everything sewn together, but just in case you are wanting to make exactly as I am making, you can easily see the pressing that we have here. Here is what this block looks like now, and from the front there, and then from the back, you can see how everything nests. And then there we go. So right now, this is currently measuring 12.5 inches square, which is exactly what I want it to measure. The next step that we need to take is we are going to machine quilt the front portion, and I'm also going to machine quilt the back portion at the same time. So I need to cut my batting, and I'm just going to do this a little loosey-goosey today. If I can grab a hold of, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we will get our batting here. Now, usually I don't show a lot of this on camera. I have it prepared in advance, but I know sometimes you guys like to see a little bit more than I show. So for those of you that like seeing a little bit more of the in action steps, you're going to get to see that today. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and cut myself a piece of batting here. And I just need it to be a little bit bigger than my front. So we'll just grab a ruler here. And I'm not doing this any fancy way at all. I just want about an inch perimeter around this block. It doesn't have to be exact. If I had a scissors here, I'd probably even just whip around it with the scissors, but I think it's over at my ironing board right now. So it's fine. Nicole's asking if she needs to go grab my scissors, but this works fine too. Just grab what I have on hand. Okay, so there is the batting piece right here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and lay that on top and do another one. I should have just folded it in half. I could have done two at the same time, but I didn't think that far ahead. So we're just gonna go ahead and do that one more time. But if you have a piece like this and you just fold it in half, you can cut both of them at the same time. This next one that I'm cutting, I am cutting for the back, and I'm gonna line it up there so I at least don't have to do the top and the right. I only have to do these two sides here. And this doesn't need to be exact, but since I had that one already cut, it's real easy just to lay there on top. Go ahead and cut another one. Okay, so my batting chunks are cut. Now I need to cut a backing piece, and then I need to cut my two lining pieces, and they're all going to be cut at the same size. I'm just going to cut them a little bit bigger than whatever this is. So if you kind of remember how we're doing this, you know, not worrying too much about exact measurements, just making sure that as we continue adding elements that we are adding sizes accordingly. That works great. Okay, so let's measure our two batting pieces. These are about 14.5. So I'm going to cut my next pieces. I'm just going to go ahead and cut them at, we'll do 16.5, 17, something like that. I like to give myself plenty of room. Set that to the side. That's going to be a binding piece, so we don't need that. This is also binding piece, so we don't need that. And we can cut both of these at the same time. Now, I would recommend that you give your fabric a quick iron when you have wrinkles like I do down here, but I'm not going to take the time to do that. And so since I need two lining pieces, I'm just going to leave it folded down here, and I'm going to cut, what did I say? I said 14, 15, 16. I'm going to cut 17. Yeah, that should be good. Let me make sure I'm remembering right. I say things and then I'm like, did I actually remember saying that? Okay, 14.5. Yeah, we'll do 17. And then we are going to, and actually I can trim this down to 17, or if I wanted to, I can just leave it this full width and then just trim it off Here you can see my measurements now. I can leave it like this, get rid of this folded edge, and trim it off once it's quilted. I think I'm gonna do that. You could opt to cut it like I was talking about cutting at 17. You could opt to do that, but I'm just going to, got things backwards here with the way my cutting mat is set up. I want you to be able to see, but I need to cut from this direction. So yeah, you can still see. Okay, good. Just had to move things around a little bit. I'm just gonna cut my fold off right there so that I have two individual pieces. I'm gonna leave my selvages and my extra fabric over here on this side. And then we're gonna sandwich those in just a bit. So let me set that to the side, this to the side. Done with that. I'll just chuck that over there. Okay, now I need to do a backing piece the same way. And so, put that back down. We have the camera zoomed in, so it means I have to move things around just a little bit to keep things so you can see. It's nice because it's closer, but it does require a little bit more of me paying attention to make sure I'm getting everything you need to see in the shot. Okay, so I'm going to, again, cut this at 17. And then this one I am going to trim up a little bit differently because we don't need the double piece, so we'll just trim it up a little bit closer to the size that we need. I'm going to just make sure my selvage overhangs my 0 mark over here. And this doesn't need to be super perfect in size. You just need to make sure it's a little bit oversized. And so I'm going to go, we'll go 18 on this one. And there will be excess that we're cutting off. You can always cut more to size if you want to. I like going a little bit bigger so that I can machine quilt it. Things shift in size a little bit when you machine quilt. They tend to shrink down, so having something a little bit bigger means that you can trim it closer to the size you want. But if you are conserving fabric and you want to cut it exactly what you need, you can certainly do that. And even something like this, where this is 12.5, if you started quilting it, you had cut everything exactly this measurement, and maybe things got a little bit shifty on you and it's no longer exactly square, no longer exactly perfect, it doesn't matter because you can square it up when you're done. So it's a really user-friendly project. The measurements will vary, and that's great from project to project. You can really customize it. All right, so I've got my backing fabric, I've got 2 lining fabrics, and then I have my batting fabrics. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to mark some lines for machine quilting. I always mark my lines for machine quilting just because I like it to be super straight. I'm just going to do straight line quilting. I'm using that same Dritz Mark Be Gone water soluble marking pen. I love using these. It's what I use primarily for marking quilting lines. I'll occasionally use something different. I've used a Hera marker when I don't want any markings on my quilt project, but I've never had bad luck using this. I can't say that's true for everybody, but I've never had a bad experience with this marker, so it's what I always use. Let's start by marking, we'll mark this little guy first. I am just going to mark, I think I want to do maybe just a 1/4 inch perimeter around this little patch here. I don't want to machine quilt over top of that. I want to just highlight that. So I'm going to do, we'll probably come down a 1/4 inch here, a 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch, and then mark some of the other seams. I think that should work well. So I'm just using this longer ruler here, lining up where I want my sewing to be. This lid is not fitting on top of here. That's one thing that's giving me trouble today. I like it, I guess, aside from that lid doesn't want to stay on. So I'm going to just mark a 1/4 inch away from there. And then I'm going to do, pivot you around, do the same thing here. Did I do? Yeah. Looked like a roomy. That might be a roomy 1/4 inch. I'll do another one here. Oh, that looks great. And then when you have that 1/2 inch on the edge of your ruler, you have to be real careful that you don't accidentally line up with the 1/2 inch rather than the 1/4 inch. These seams make it really easy just to mark everything nice and tidy. And then I'm going to mark it over here yet as well. Then I'll go back in and mark the other lines that I need to mark. So I've got that framed out. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing on either side of this seam and on either side of this seam. So let's just go ahead and start here. We'll do a 1/4 inch. I like doing a 1/4 inch away. It means that you're not getting into your seam allowances. It just stays right on the outside edge of that seam allowance, which is nice. There we go. And then we'll do the same thing over here yet. I'm just lining it up with my seam, staying a 1/4 inch away. You can be as loosey-goosey or as particular as you want with your machine quilting. Sometimes you want a more organic quilting look, and other times you need something, or you want something just a little bit more specific. So that is all the quilting that I'm going to do for this guy. And now for the back, because I don't want this project to take a super long time, I am probably going to do a little bit less. Normally I would do, I like a 1 inch crosshatch, I think looks great. But we'll go a little bit. Do I reach? Oh, I need a longer ruler. I really like being able to reach across my whole project when I am doing this. So if I can, I will grab the longest ruler so that it runs the whole direction all the way across. So this is, I'm just going to mark my diagonal here from corner to corner. And then I'm going to go and mark 1 inch cross hatches across this whole thing. And I don't think you want to watch me mark this whole thing, so we will just add some zhuzhi music and speed this process up a little bit. But you get the idea. I'm just lining up, doing my 1 inch marks. I know some of you will say that you can do this without marking, and you absolutely can. If you have a foot, a guide on your sewing machine that allows you to line things up and just stitch away, by all means go ahead and do that. I have one of those, and I just find that it's not quite as accurate for me as when I mark. And so I do like to mark everything. But if you've got a different method, of course a different marker, you just go ahead and use whatever you want. So that completes the marking of our little backing piece here. The next step is going to be to machine quilt everything. Before doing that, I need to make my quilt sandwiches. I'm going to use the batting and then our lining pieces, backing, and the top to make little quilt sandwiches. I'll have 2 of them, one for the front and one for the back. Okay. Slide to the side, buddy. Slide to the side. And we're back. My little friend Tigsy has joined us once more. He's been real silly today. So I have made my sandwiches. I am going to move him out of the way so I can talk about these just a little bit, but I like using the 505 temporary spray adhesive when I make just little quilt sandwiches, these small little projects. This is what I use to sandwich my chunks together. So that's what I've used here. This is not something that you want to use at your cutting table. I went into another room to make my little quilt sandwiches. You might even find that you like taking it outside, and wherever you spray it, any overspray is going to leave an adhesive, sticky residue. So if you're doing it in your driveway, you might even like to put a piece of cardboard under it so you don't have to deal with any of that stickiness. And that's why you don't want to do it on your cutting table either, because you will have overspray and it will be sticky. So I want to show you these. Come here, my handsome boy. Oh my goodness, he's so big. Okay, why don't you just come here? All right, so this is, he heard someone coming downstairs. He had to go investigate. This is what the front of my project bag looks like. And this is how I prefer my sandwiches. I like the top section to be the smallest, a little bit bigger on the batting, and then biggest for the backing. And then I'll just quilt this up, trim everything down. My backing piece, because of the way I cut those fabrics, because I was loosey-goosey with my measurements, it's not exactly how I like it. It works just fine, but I just think it's easier to see what you're doing and where you're at when you have these nice borders set up this way. Not that there's anything wrong with this, it's just not my preference. So, but this is what I have, this is what I'm working with. It works just fine, and probably some of you like having it this way. So what I have is my backing. This is going to be my lining, and then we have our batting tucked in there. All nicely adhesived together and ready to machine quilt. And you can see this is actually the size that we're going to end up with, something more similar to this. So I will be able to trim this down, and this is going to be just fine. The next step, machine quilting. I'm just going to be doing straight line machine quilting. It's going to take a fair amount of time with the 1-inch crosshatch on the back. So I think what I'm going to do is pause here, and we are going to do a part 2 of our patchwork bag tutorial, because we still need to talk about putting that zipper in and a couple other finishing steps, and I don't want to rush through that or have a video that's ridiculously long. So we're gonna put a pause on it. I will share part 2 next week, along with the Callie & Co. Mystery Block of the Month block tutorial. That's also coming out next week. So we'll have 2 fun things that I get to share with you next week. If you have questions about what I have shown so far today, feel free to let me know. If you start making your own bag and you wanna continue on making before waiting for my part 2 video, I've got Joanna's tutorial linked down below so you can take a peek at that. And I think that wraps up today's video. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and I will catch you again next time.